Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tea Time Crochet. Today we're going to be doing the corn portion of our cornucopia. So mine, I wanted to look like Indian corn, so that's why I chose the colors that I did. You could choose just yellow if you would like, and then you could choose green for the ends, for the stem part, if you would like. But like I said, I wanted mine to look more like Indian corn, so that's why I chose the color that I did. I already made 2 of mine, so I need 3. And I don't know if you could tell the little bit of a difference in between them. It's the exact same pattern, but I stuffed this one a little bit more than I did this one. So you can make them look just a little bit different because, you know, corn do not look the same no matter what you do. You're always going to have some sort of variant in it, so I kind of want to add that little bit of character to it. So I also added, on the fatter one, I added 3 pieces of this like husk part, and then I only added 2 on this one. So you can add a little bit of character to each one of your pieces. That way, you know, they're not exactly the same, but they are the exact same pattern. I just overstuffed this one a little bit. So the things that you're going to need, you're going to need some yarn. Like I said, you could use just a regular plain yellow yarn if you would like. It probably needs to be a pale yellow, which you could probably use something close to what I used for the husk part of my other 2. But you could probably use something close to this. But for mine, like I said, I wanted it to look like Indian corn. So I had a hard time finding anything, any yarn that had the tones of colors that I wanted. So this was the only one I could find. So this is Karen Simply Soft, and it's in the Paints collection. And this one is Sunset Variegated, and it is a number 4, although Karen Simply Soft is a thinner number 4. In my book, I would classify this as a number 3, not a number 4, but they do rate it as a number 4. So any number 4 yarn will work. You can, you know, choose your colors however you would like. It's, you know, it's your cornucopia. You can do it however you would like. And then the second color you're going to need, and you won't need very much of this, so I just have some scrap. I do know this is Red Heart Super Saver. I do not know the color though. Like I said, it's just some scrap that I had in my stash, and it does not have the label in it. So any just kind of pale yellow. If you're going to do yellow corn, then I would probably go with a probably a medium tone green for your husk part. But for me, this is the color that I chose. You're also going to need the hook that goes with your yarn. Since mine is Karen Simply Soft, it calls for a 5mm hook. Normally, if you're going to use like regular Red Heart, it'll probably be a 5.5. So just check your yarn label and just use whatever your yarn label suggests. You're also going to need some scissors. You're also going to need a yarn needle with a large eye, and you're also going to need some stitch markers. I normally just use a paper clip, but you know, you can use whatever. I have a whole little jar here of them. And a scrap piece of paper, you know, is always handy to keep track of where you're at. You're also going to need some Fiberfill, which is also, you know, known as toy stuffing. This is just some scrap that I have. I've been using it for, you know, pretty much all of the pieces for the cornucopia. And that's what you're going to need. So to start off with, you're going to start off with your main color, which is going to be my variegated color. Okay, so we're just going to start off with a slip knot. And we're going to chain 3. So 1, whoops, 2, 3, and then we're going to join in this beginning chain with a slip stitch. And that will form our ring that we're going to work into. And then we're just going to chain 1. And we're just going to forget that that chain's even there. So into the ring, we're going to put 6 single crochets. And once I do this first one, I'm going to just pop my stitch marker into that space, or into that first stitch. Not the chain 1 that we did, but the first single crochet. So that's 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm just going to give this end a tug, and that's going to, so I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of this single crochet, the first single crochet, and that is our first row complete. If you can hear me crinkling paper over here, it's because I have my pattern written out and I'm trying to keep track of where I'm at. Even though I've done this a couple times, I still need to keep track of what I'm doing. So I'm going to chain 1 again, and then I'm going to go into that same first stitch right here with a single crochet, and I'm going to put my stitch marker into that single crochet, and I'm going to pretend that that chain 1 doesn't even exist. That's just to get us where we need to be. So we're just going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch around for a total of 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to slip stitch to join into this beginning single crochet. I'm just going to pull that tight. And you can see it's already starting to form a little bit. So I'm going to chain 1, then I'm going to go back into that same stitch and put a single crochet. I'm going to put my stitch marker in, And then I'm going to put 2 single crochets in every stitch around. So we're going to double our stitches. So one thing I don't like about Caron Simply Soft is it splits really easily. Can kind of make it hard to work with. Okay, so that's our last stitch, and we're going to slip stitch into this beginning single crochet where our stitch marker is. And now would be a good time to just kind of pull your yarn out and flip this inside out and hide your tail, your beginning tail, because once it gets longer you're not going to be able to do that. I found that with my first one I forgot to do that because I normally hide all my tails at the very end, and I couldn't get it to turn it inside out to hide my tail. So I just had to tuck it inside. And then you could just cut that off after you've wove it in a little bit. And then make sure you flip your thing back right side out. Okay, so we're going to chain 1, and we're going to put a single crochet in that first stitch, and put our stitch marker in, and then we're going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch around. Oops. Okay, so I made it back to the beginning, and I'm just going to slip stitch into this beginning single crochet. And this is what you should have so far. It's got a little bit of a point to it, but it's starting to widen out. Okay, so we're going to chain 1 and put a single crochet into that first stitch. See what I mean about the yarn wanting to split? So keep that in mind if you buy Caron Simply Soft, that it does like to split. It can be a little frustrating. Okay, so we're going to do another increase row. So we have 1 single crochet here, and in the next stitch we're going to put 2 single crochets. And then 1 in the next stitch, and then 2 in the next. And then 1 in the next. And we're just going to repeat that all the way around. So 1, and then 2, 1, and then 2, 1, and then 2, and you should end on an increase. And then we're going to slip stitch to join. So this is what you should have so far. Kind of looks like a little funnel. Okay, so this next row is going to be our repeat row. We're going to repeat this next row until it gets the length that we need it to be. And that is a total of 26 rows. So that's starting from the very beginning, the first row, until row 26, we're going to repeat this next row. So we're going to start off with a single crochet in the beginning, and you always want to put your stitch marker in because you're doing single crochet and it can kind of blend all together, so you may not be able to figure out where your first stitch is. So we're just going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch around. And that's our last stitch, and we're going to slip stitch to join. So we're going to repeat that, putting 1 single crochet in every stitch around until we have reached a total of 26 rows. Now it really doesn't look like corn at all, but as you get further along, it'll start to gain its shape. And then we'll drawstring the top closed after we stuff it, and we'll add our little husk part here, and it will look just fine. And then you'll be able to kind of, you know, pull this and shape it a little bit. It's kind of be a little out of whack as you're working it, but with every project you have that problem. But like I said, we're going to continue working in this this repeat row, which is 1 single crochet in every stitch around until we have reached a total of 26 rows from the beginning. So that's 26 rows total. And if you want your corn to be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, it's up to you. This is where you're going to do it, is in these repeat rows. So go ahead and do that, and then I will catch up with you when I have completed my 26 rows. Okay, so I just finished my 26th row, and here's my last stitch. So I'm going to just slip stitch to join, and you can pull the stitch marker out. We don't need it anymore. And then we're going to fasten off, and you're going to leave yourself quite a bit of a tail, because we're going to need that tail to drawstring our top closed. So you're just going to pull that tight, and now we're going to stuff our corn with our stuffing. So I'm just going to take my stuffing and kind of pull it apart, and then I'm just going to stuff it into our corn here. You want to make sure that you get it down to the bottom. So you're just going to stuff it until it is, you know, as stuffed as you would like. You can kind of just form it and whatnot. And I like to just kind of overstuff mine a little bit to where it's still kind of poking out a little bit. That way when we drawstring it closed, this top is going to be fully stuffed. I noticed in the past that if you don't do this, then your top can be kind of floppy and unfilled. So you're going to need your yarn needle now. I'm just going to thread this on my yarn needle. And just like before when we've drawstringed, I like to drawstring from the inside, and we're just going to weave back and forth through every stitch, just like that. You want to make sure that you don't catch any of that stuffing, because sometimes you can pull it through, just like I did there. Just want to keep going back and forth. And then I'm back to where I started. And now all we're going to do is just kind of stuff this in and just tug on the yarn and keep stuffing it in as we're doing it, and we'll drawstring that closed. So just like that. Make sure you don't pull too hard. You want to pull hard enough that it closes off. You just want to kind of hold it there, and now we're just going to knot it. And you don't have to worry about that knot. We're going to run it through the center right here. So you can just kind of squish your yarn around until it gets the shape, or squish your stuffing around until it gets the shape that you want it to be. You know what a corn shape looks like. So now we're just going to run our yarn down the center of this, and we're going to come out the side over here. It doesn't matter where, this isn't going to show at all, because we're going to pull it a little bit tighter, just like this, and you're going to see it tuck in at the top. And we're going to trim this yarn off, and it's going to pop back inside, and then you can just pull this top out a little bit. So we are done with our stuffing. And now we're going to move on to our husk portion. And like I said, I'm going to use just this yellow color. And how I like to do it is probably different than how other people are going to do it, but I like to just attach right to the top here. So I'm just going to run my crochet hook underneath this final rim right here, and across, trying not to hook any of the stuffing, and coming out the other side. So I hope you can see that. I just run underneath this final stitches where we drawstringed, and I'm just going to pull my yarn through to the other side. So I'm just going to pull it out like this, and I'm just going to leave myself a longer tail, because we're going to want to run that back through the center. And I'm just going to tie that on. And then I'm going to work all of my pieces directly from the top here. That way I don't have to sew them on later. So I'm going to go back through that section. And doing this also helps close up that hole where you can't see it very well. So see, it's really nice and closed. So I'm going to go back through where I just went through to tie that, and I'm going to pull up a loop, just like that, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through it, just to secure it, and then I'm going to pull that chain as tight as I can get it. And then I'm just going to chain however many chains that I want for the length of my stems here. I didn't even count. I just kind of chained until I got it the length that I wanted. So just going to do this. And that is 9 chains, and that's not counting this one where we chained up for our to pull our yarn through. So we're just going to single crochet back down this chain. You could go in through the back loops if you would like. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna go straight into the chain itself, and I'm just going to single crochet, put 1 single crochet all the way back down to the bottom. And this naturally wants to curl on its own, so that just adds to the effect of what you're going for. So here's my last stitch. And then I'm going to just go right back into where I started, and I'm going to pull up a loop and I'm going to slip stitch. And that just secures, it makes it look a lot neater that it's actually started from the bottom, so both sides are attached to the end of the corn. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of rotate it a little bit, and I'm going to go through another spot, and I'm just going to do the same thing and pull up a loop. And pull that tight. And then I'm just going to chain. So I'm just going to repeat the same process. I'm just going to chain some more. And you can just kind of, measure to make sure it's around the same length. They don't have to be accurate by any means. And then I'm just going to repeat the same process. I'm going to go back down the chain, putting 1 single crochet in every stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to go back in through where I came through. Ugh. And I'm going to slip stitch to join, and I'm going to pull that really tight, and that just secures. You can see how that's starting to pucker right there. Don't worry about that at all, because you'll be able to work that out once you've completed however many of the husk part you're going to do. So once again, I'm just going to kind of rotate it, and I'm going to add my third and final stem here. And there's no accurate way, just do it however you prefer to do it, and place it wherever you would like. I like to just have an equal amount to where it's kind of, I'm kind of placing them in a circle around the top of my corn. Okay, so I'm just going to chain again. And then I'm just going to go back down that chain with single crochets. And then I'm just going to go back into where I came through at. And I'm just going to slip stitch to join. And then I'm just going to pull my yarn through, pull that tight because we're going to fasten off. And then I'm just going to cut myself a tail and pull it all the way through. So this should be what you have so far. Like I said, you can just work this out to where it's nice and flat, and then it'll look just fine. Now we're going to hide these tails here. I think I'm going to have to do it separately. So we're just going to do it the same exact way. We're just going to run it straight down the center and out the side. So I'm just going to go in through the center here. Doesn't matter where. And then have it come out the side. And remember to give that a little bit of a tug, that way it bounces back inside. So see, that's popped right back in. And then we're going to do the same thing with this other one. And my personal preference is I normally like to find where my seam's at, and I usually like to come out that way. But you know, that's just me. I normally like to line things up with the seam. It has no effect on the outcome whatsoever. So there we go. So that is your Indian corn for your cornucopia. Like I said, you can just kind of squish this around and make it in, you know, whatever shape you would like. You can tug on it a little bit to make it stretch out a little bit more. You can have it nice and fat. It's totally up to you. You want to make sure you don't stretch out the stitches too far, otherwise you'll see the stuffing inside. But you could also make more of these if you would like. You could make less. You could probably make one large one if you would like. Just make one chain and then do double crochets, and that would just make one large one. I think the separate strands are kind of cool looking. So that is your corn for the cornucopia. Next up will be the squash portion, and that will be next week's tutorial. And I think the squash and the leaves will be next, and then you should have all the pieces to your cornucopia. I have done 3 pieces of corn for mine. You don't have to do that many, or you could do more. Like I said, my cornucopia is rather large, so that's just, you know, what I wanted to, the number that I wanted to have. So I want to thank everybody for watching and have a great day.